Welcome to Obsidian for tabletop RPGs. Let's learn how to use the tool. Alright, g'day guys, and welcome back today to another Obsidian adventure. Today we're going to be having another look at Initiative Tracker. It's been a while since we've done a video on Initiative Tracker, but there's actually some functionality that I haven't covered, and I thought we'd dive into that today. That functionality is the encounter builder. Not a lot of people probably even know this, but there is actually a full functional encounter builder built into Initiative Tracker. It can be a little hard to find if you don't know where to look, so let's go in and show you how to do that. Okay, so first thing, if you're brand new to Obsidian and this is the first sort of video you're seeing, you kind of need to stop. I want you to go over to Obsidian TTRPG tutorials and to start coming through the tutorial content. But specifically, if you're new to this sort of plugin, what you need to come down here is to the plugin tutorials and come down here to where we see the TTRPG World Builder plugins, and you'll see Initiative Tracker, you'll see Fantasy Stat Blocks. I recommend you start with these sort of videos. And the reasoning for that is simple. It's going to go through the simple sort of functionality that's required to use this plugin. I do recommend Stat Blocks and Initiative Tracker, they work together. But it'll run through how to use this plugin, because tonight we're not going to go through that. We're going to jump straight into the more advanced functionality and show you how that works. Alright, let's go. Okay, so we've got obviously Initiative Tracker installed and enabled. We've got Fantasy Stat Blocks installed, enabled. We've got monsters loaded into it. Alright, we're now ready to rock and roll. And you can see here I've got a basic adventure in front of me. We can come over here to, I think, On the Beaten Path. And we can have a look here and actually see that there's an encounter built into this. You can see it is calculating, that's a trivial difficulty. And we can launch that, right? And that launches that into the Initiative Tracker on the right. Lets us click our stat blocks and see them and manage that at combat. All right, we want to take this a step further. We want to create a balanced encounter for our party. And how do we do that? All right, well, first things first, come down here to Settings, come to down here under Community Plugins and Initiative Tracker again. And you want to make sure that you've got your players sort of added in here. Alright, we've gone through this in the actual Initiative Tracker video. I recommend you go have a look at it. But the nuts and bolts is you want to make sure that you've got your party set up. Alright, because we're going to be using the party in the next step. From there, we can close that out and come back down to here. And we can actually go over and press the Initiative Tracker Encounter Builder button. Click that. And that will open up a new tab. And whoa, look at this. Alright, I'm just going to minimize these so you guys can see this, because it took me a while to find some stuff tonight, but you know, these are actually like expandable headers, I guess you could say. Some tricky CSS has gone into making this sort of like look the way it does. We've got the player box here. Alright, now what you probably realize is that's pulling from the Initiative Tracker configuration that we just had. Alright, by default what I've got is I've got 7 players that I've basically added in. Now I've got the Kids Power. This is actually my kids game. Interesting game. They always burn things down. But I've got seven of the local kids that are playing in this game here. Obviously you can change the party if you've got a different one. I don't, so it doesn't go through there. Now the other thing you can do is you can go through and say, hey, well, I want to make sure that I've only got 4 of these. So the first 4 turned up, the next 3 didn't. Alright, so I can actually press that icon and remove them from the entire actual encounter. Now it's got their level here as well, and that is important, right? Because the encounter builder uses the level to obviously determine what sort of, you know, XP is basically available. So these guys are level 2, it's nice and simple. Alright, we've gone through, we've enabled 4 players, which Pathfinder 2E is the default out of the box sort of party size. And now we can see over here it's got some ranges. So a trivial should be 40 XP, low challenge 60 XP, moderate challenge 80, severe 120, extreme 160. That's my bands. And then what we can do here, I'll actually get rid of this, is actually see the current difficulty. Alright, so right now it's a trivial encounter. We don't have any monsters in there. Alright, so it's just nothing. Alright, so let's start building an encounter. We come down here and it says add some creatures to get started. Alright, we've got some buttons here to add and save these things. We've got some options here in our filter to break this down. And you can see down here we've got a massive list of monsters. Alright, massive list of monsters. Alright, we need to go through and figure out which ones we're going to do. So, what I'm going to do is I want to have some goblins in my fight. So I type in goblin and that actually gives me a list of all of the goblins. Alright, so I want a goblin warrior. Alright, what does that do? That's a trivial. Alright, I've used 15 of my total XP. Alright, let's go through and add a goblin pyro as well. We're now into low difficulty. I reckon they could handle another one as well. Yeah. What if they had an orc with them? An orc scrapper. There we go. Alright, this is now a moderate difficulty level. Alright, so that's fine. Basically, you know, reading through Archives of Nethys, it means it's a serious challenge to the players. So this is probably a nice sort of level for me to go. I can obviously determine if I'm going to go too far, how quickly I'm going to go too far, but you know, it's pretty good. Alright, you can see over here I've got some plus and minus buttons, and I can obviously increase the number of people that are in there, obviously keeping track of the difficulty level that I'm doing. Over here we've got some options, so I can see, well, you know, how much XP each of them are worth. I can hide them from the initiative tracker window. We can make them allies. Alright, or we can remove them. Alright, so if we come back here and we put the goblin back in again, goblin warrior, alright, that's the remove button. So look, that's pretty simple, right? We can then go through from there, set up some encounters, go, alright, I've got some confidence in what this is going to take. Also, if, you know, something happened, you know, maybe they're on the road and they needed a quick encounter, it's right here inside of Obsidian, right? You can just quickly go over there. Now, from here, what I could do is press this button, and that then starts the encounter in the initiative tracker. Alright, and then I can track through whose turn it is. It automatically rolls your initiative. What I like to do at the table is we actually roll real dice. Alright, then I like to actually start at the top and go, Nix, what'd you roll? And he goes, I rolled a 14, and I press enter. Sunju, what'd you roll? I rolled a 16. Alright, and that just resets it. That's how we sort of play, because we like to have that physical effect on the table. Like, we still like to feel like we're playing an actual tabletop game. So real dice, some people even use like paper character sheets, and that's what we do. We just basically, we override the initiative. Alright, just makes us feel like the dice are still having an impact on the game. Sometimes I'll leave the monsters. Sometimes I'll leave the monsters and roll the dice just for fun, just so that the players hear me rolling and wondering what I'm doing. Or I might just go through and actually, you know, rework all of that myself anyway. Now, what we can do is actually save these encounters. So this will be Goblin Encounter 1. I like to have a naming convention. P times 4 tells me it's designed for 4 to 4 players. Alright, that's now saved. Alright, now we've got load encounter. So we've got that saved and we can load it. And we can obviously clear the encounter as well. So if we clear that and then we load the encounter, we get that encounter back. Alright, so obviously that makes it sort of, you know, quite easy for us to use. Now I do wonder, there must be a way from here to load an encounter. Here we go. Alright, load an encounter, and I've got the Goblin Encounter 1 P times 4 that's loaded there. Just out of curiosity, let's come down to settings, go back to initiative tracker, and come down here and have a look at our encounters, and we can now see that an encounter has been saved. Alright, I probably wouldn't want to have too many of these. I wouldn't want to have like 6 sessions pre-planned ahead of time. I might stay 1 session ahead or 2 sessions ahead, and that might be it. You know, it's completely up to you, but yeah, I'd be a bit careful about that. Alright. So there we go. That's how you create a very simple encounter. It's how you go through and obviously make sure it's balanced, make sure it's easy. You can throw it into combat really, really quickly. You can load it from that combat very, very quickly. Alright, it's a very, very simple tool to use. Okay, for those who have keen eyes, you probably noticed there's a few other options in here that I didn't play with. That's the options down here in the actual filtering options, and these buttons here. And the reason I wasn't showing them in the first part of this video is because they weren't working in my testing, and I've just sat down and spent a bit more time and figured it out, and I thought it's worth showing you guys what I learned so that you can replicate yourself, because this is very, very customizable, and I didn't realize it was, you could just do so much with it. Anyway, so let's just start off with this. Alright, we've got our filter options, and usually they might be hidden, and you can obviously filter on a name and it brings up anything with that name. But if you expand this out, you've got some more options. And I think the really important thing to note is there's a cog button over here on the right. And if you go edit headers, edit filters, you can actually change the options here. All right, now this is important. So I was using the 5th edition version. And if I reset those headers to the default options just to replicate the original environment, I'll show you what I'm talking about just so you can see. Alright, here we go. So I've got a filter for a name, a min CR, a max CR, and I'm meant to have another dot here. Alright, now I'm using the Pathfinder 2e version, and I will say that if you're using 5th edition you probably won't have this experience. But I noticed that there was no second dot here, and no matter what I did with the slide bar, nothing seemed to work. No matter what I put in here, nothing seemed to work. And I was like, what's going on? Why isn't this working for me? Like, I can see in the screenshots on the documentation site that it's meant to be something that's quite easy to use. If I click in here, I can see size, I can go to size. Type was doing nothing for me. Alignment, what's going on? Alright, so those ones were working. I was like, alright, I think I'm starting to get this, something I'm starting to understand. Now, in order for you to understand, I think the easiest way to show you is to come down here to settings and come down here to community plugins, and we're going to find fantasy stat blocks actually down here on the left. We'll just come down to a monster. Alright, we'll go an acrobat and go edit, and we'll have a look. And this is the raw data that obviously feeds this plugin, and this is where I thought this is where it's going on. And you'll notice that the slider was using the field CR, because in 5th edition that's what it uses, is CR. If we have a look down here, there's no CR in PF2E, okay? It doesn't exist. What we do have is level, alright, but the range slider requires a number, alright? I want to get a range between 0 and 25, for example, and we can see here that this value for level is a string. Alright, a string is something that contains alphabet, right, numbers, right? Not just numbers, but actually, like, you know, letters. And you can see here creature 2, it's alphanumeric, right? It's got all sorts in there, so that's a string. It's not just a number. Alright, so effectively what that means is looking through the current PF2E stat block as it's currently designed, taking note that this is probably going to change. I am aware that the community are currently reviewing the new upgrade to properties that hasn't released to the public yet, but it's coming. It's going to have a fairly significant change and impact on this plugin, is my understanding. They're trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do. And so this may change in the future, but right now you can't use this as a slider because it's a string, not a number. Alright, outside of that, if we go through and have a look, what was the other thing that was breaking? It was type. Alright, so if we go back down and we pick another monster, what do we have? Do we have type? I'm guessing we don't, because there was nothing there. Alright, I'm not seeing any sort of type. AC could be an interesting one. Alright, there is no type. So we've got size, we've got alignment. There is level there that could be quite useful, maybe. Yeah, maybe level. Alright, but type doesn't seem to be a thing. Okay, so that's the problem with the current default layout, is that it's designed for D&D 5th edition. I'm playing Pathfinder at the moment, right? So I'm using the Pathfinder version. So what do we do? How do we set this up in order to work? Alright, well, let's go to settings. We're going to edit headers to start off with. These are the headers in the filter block. So we've got name, that one's useful. CR, not useful at all. Alright, that is not working for us. So what if we change that to level? I'm going to change this to level. I'm going to change this to a string. Alright, because remember, it's a string. Alright, let's go through and have a look at that. Now we're getting creature 13, creature 11. Alright, that's more useful. We're now starting to get level. Alright, after the level, we've got another column there that's getting these dashes. And that doesn't seem to be working properly. What is that? Level is type. Well, we're not getting type, it's not working. Alright, so we can get rid of that. So now we've got name, level, size, and alignment. Alright, that now gives us a better sort of result. And we can see that the table formatting for this isn't fantastic currently. But if we go through and have a look, let's bring back up a monster. We're going to have a look. What do we got? We've got name, we've got level, we've got alignment. I think we've got size. Yes, we've got size. What else would actually be useful in this sort of thing? And you'd probably want to have these ones without all the subsections of information. There's not a lot there that jumps off the screen at me. Modifier, probably not required. Like, you're talking about your high level information here that you want to have, right? So that every monster shows you this information, and there's not a lot here that I want to have on a simple table. Maybe AC. Yeah, we could have the AC in there. Alright, let's put the AC in. So we're going to add a new one, a new header. We're going to call it AC. We're going to link it to the property AC, which is the same name as is in the stat block. I believe it should be a number. Alright, where do we want it? We'll put it right there next to size. And there we go. And now we get their AC. Alright, so name, level, AC, size, and their alignment. Keep in mind, alignment's going with PF2E, the rework, so that'll be gone soon. Alright, so that's how we reset that up so that we've got that sort of option. Alright, let's go through and have a look at the filters next. So we'll go edit filters. Alright, now this is the one that wasn't working. Okay, this is the CR filtering. You'll see here that, you know, we're not getting the other little dot over here. What I'm going to do for the purposes of this video is I'm just going to change this one. Did I do that right? Edit filters. I'm going to change CR to AC. I'll change it to AC, and I'm going to get rid of CR. We're going to derive those options. Now we can see here, right? Now we've got a slider, and that's actually successfully working. The reason why is because it's actually a number that's saved in the AC field, and so therefore this works on numbers, so therefore that works, okay? If the level text in the Pathfinder 2e stat blocks didn't contain that actual string, the word level, space, level number, alright, if it was just the level number, we could use this fine, but the current design of the community PF2e stuff means it's not going to work. Alright, so we'll get rid of that. We've got that. We can get rid of type because we know type isn't going to work, but what we can do is we'll type in level, and we'll put the fields for level in there, and we'll get rid of type completely. We're going to derive that. Now derive means use the data to determine the options. The other option there is to actually come through and create options. Let's just use derive, that's a lot easier. Alright, we'll shut that down. Alright, so now we have size, we can pick, level, alright, we can pick. Alright, it's not perfect, but it works. You could actually go 1, 2, 3, 4, alright, and then you can pick from some nice low-level creatures. I want the one who are chaotic evil, right, there we go. And then that makes it a bit more useful for you as filter options, alright? So obviously the reason I'm showing you that is if you've like just come along and you're like, hey, I'm going to throw this into PF2E, and you bring up the options, you're like, they're not working. That's kind of like a brief explanation of why. It's because there's different data used to design different stat blocks for different systems, and the data is not always the same type of data, and that's causing us an issue in this situation. But as I said, the new properties is coming, right? And for anyone who hasn't seen that yet, do I have it? Yeah, we've got properties here. Alright, so properties is actually going to be this, you know, this UI that sits on top of things. And it's actually going to define like a layout for the front matter and some rules around the front matter. And that's changing the way we're having to think about the stat blocks. Apparently the community is trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do about that. So watch this space, because I've heard they're actually going to have predefined types of data for monsters, right? It'll have to be predefined. It'll make it a lot easier for us to use the plugin, and also probably an easier way for us not to break it when things change. Alright, anyway, that is basically how you set up the filter options inside of the encounter builder, so hopefully that's useful to you. And you know, have a play, you can change this, you can add your columns, and off you go. Alright, so there you go, that's the encounter builder that's built into the initiative tracker plugin. Very easy to use, quite easy to smash out a nice balanced encounter, especially if you're playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition, alright, because it's a really balanced system and combat is just on point with it. Alright, so hopefully that's useful for you to figure it out. If you are brand new to my videos, you know, do make sure you jump over to obsidianttrpgtutorials.com. That is where I'm moving all of my tutorials, and I recommend you start with the Get Started. Just a quick shout out though to my regular viewers that I have put in a templates section now. I've spent a bit of work updating this. I've got sections here on functionality templates, which are kind of like the templates you use to add things to your notes, like maybe you want to add an encounter, or maybe you want to add a monster stat block or a call out. Like, I use those all the time. And my note templates, I've started adding those in as well. I've actually put in one of my templates here for my NPC, so you can come in and actually have a look at how that works. And there's an example here that you can copy into your notes, and also a breakdown on how that template functions, what it does, designed so you can sort of step through, understand how it's working, so you can go away and make your own templates. Alright, so that might be useful to my regular viewers. Outside of that, I'd like to say a huge and massive thank you to my patrons, right? Massive in my life at this moment. Community and support, you can find my Patreon link here. I just want to say a huge thanks to those guys for supporting me. If you are looking for the community, come down here to Obsidian TTRPG Community Discord, jump into this live and active server here. There's always people chatting around all sorts of stuff. It's even like it's starting to mature where people are just talking about world building at this point, which makes me happy. It means we've got the tool to a point where people are comfortable, they know what they're doing with it, and now they're really using it to build their worlds. That's fantastic. Alright, so jump in there, and outside of that, guys, have a great day. We'll see you on the other side, and I will speak to you on the socials. Enjoy.